I'm Miriam Smout, founder and creator of Redemption Mamas. And I love, love, love helping women, working with women, mentoring women on their heart healing journeys. I help women heal deep wounds, reclaim their personal power, and unlock God given destiny. And that through spirit led, intuitive heart healing, a journey that I've been on myself now for 20 odd years, which I look at myself and I'm like, maybe a few wrinkles there. So it's been a journey, and it takes a lot of courage to step into a journey like that. But I am so grateful, so glad, so thankful that I chose not to do it alone, chose not to be isolated, and chose to get brave and listen to my heart, listen to some of the cries of my heart, some of the pain in my heart, and start that heart healing journey. So this workshop, this Come Taste and See workshop, is all about coming and having a little listen and a little, dabble into what is this heart healing all about. And so the very best way I thought to do that was to bring in some people that I've been connected with over my life journey who have started, and none of us can say we finished this heart healing journey, because I'd like to beg to differ with anyone that thinks that. Heart healing is an ongoing process, and it will be for me for the rest of my life. But I'm so grateful for the skills and the strategies and the things that I've learned for that just make my life so much more livable, enjoyable, and purposeful. So today I've got with me Teresa McKay. Teresa has become a very special part of our life. We actually breed dogs, and we have a breeding kennel called Miracle Paws. So let's see. I think Teresa's got some little treasures there. Oh, look at them. These are some of our little puppies from the latest litter, from Bella's litter. And Bella is...
They're so wriggly, they just want to feed. I just stole them from their mummy and they were feeding, so they're all like...
oops. Oh, you take them back. Give them back to mum. Yeah, so we have had Bella living with Teresa. Teresa has become part of our Miracle Paws crew. And Bella had 7 puppies. She's the tiniest little thing. Can't believe she had 7 puppies, but she did. And they're vigorous, healthy.
Very.
They're keeping Bella pretty dry, aren't they?
They are. Bella doesn't have much time to restock on milk because they're just there all the time.
Yeah, 7. That's amazing. Well, Teresa and her family are doing an absolutely amazing job with Bella, and she is the happiest little girl. And the training that Emily's been doing. Teresa's daughter Emily was helping me over the last year when I had puppies, and she would come and help me do all the yucky jobs.
Yeah.
Actually, she did some really amazing jobs as well. So training and all that stuff. So it's been a real joy to get to know Teresa and her family. So Teresa, I'm curious for you, how did you decide to start on a heart healing journey?
Wow. Our story is a long one. I think for a long time, it would be marriage. Marriage would probably be the biggest instigator for a heart healing journey, just being in a marriage that was hard, super dysfunctional. I didn't realize at the time, but I was incredibly codependent. So therefore, the heart wounds were just intense, and my life was chaotic, and things had spiraled so far out of the control that my husband had to go into a rehab for a number of different reasons, many of which were illegal activities, and it had just got beyond manageable. And I had tried to micromanage and control everything in our marriage to try and make it right, to try and make it functional. And I just got to the end of myself where I realized that I couldn't do any of that anymore, that I was so dysfunctional and I was just making it worse and worse and worse. So when my husband decided to go into rehab, I made this incredible commitment to say, I don't want to do this anymore. The dysfunctional patterns that keep repeating themselves, and I keep ending up in dysfunctional relationships, in situations where I allow other people to take advantage of me, just giving them complete power and control over my life rather than me owning and having authority over it and taking back that control. Just letting other people manipulate and control and not realizing that I could be able to do that myself. So dysfunction was probably the biggest indicator to me that I needed to change.
What was happening for you emotionally? Emotionally and mentally? What impact was it having on that part of you?
I think by the time we got to that breaking point and I had separated from him and he went into rehab, just prior to that breaking point was suicidal thoughts, intense depression, fear. Fear was probably a big driver. Fear of him cheating, fear of getting hurt again, fear of other people, paranoia of people talking about me. Just became nearly impossible to function in the community because you were always so worried. And even though I could put on a mask and a brave front, underneath in my heart, it was hurting all the time.
So what are some of the processes that you use to kind of step into heart healing?
So it's been a long journey in that sense too. And I've used a number of different processes, starting off with counselling, just catching up with counsellors and getting help, and stepping out of denial was the biggest thing at the start, to just start opening the doors and seeing what was really there rather than being the victim and just being so caught in that, to come alongside somebody else and have them disciple me and work with me and encourage me was a huge factor at the very beginning. Then as things progressed, there was a couple of different things that we had done. There's some courses over here that engage with different heart healing aspects, and they look at various areas of the heart that need healing. They identify specific areas. So that was Elijah House and Blessing Generations was another one that went into that. They were both really helpful in another step of that journey. And then in the last couple of years, we came across a organisation in America called Pure Desire, and they run betrayal and beyond groups. And even though I'd gone through all of these other courses, I'd never really identified that I had betrayal trauma, and I was dealing with betrayal trauma. And it made a huge difference to be able to name that and understand what that was and how that impacted, and how the triggers that were coming up were a normal reaction to a trauma that I had experienced. And that was just like a turning point for me to go through that course and have that understanding of what was happening in my heart in response to circumstances, even circumstances from childhood where I had believed a lie about something and then taken that on as my identity and just had no self-worth or no value from that. To have those things brought to light and then have a truth brought to that just brought worth and value. I suddenly had an identity that was me, because I had previously been something that was someone to somebody else. I was a mother, I was a wife, I was a daughter, but I wasn't me. I didn't know who Teresa was. So to go through that stuff and to start identifying those things and what are the values and beliefs that I have, what is inside me that's incredibly special, they were huge factors in redefining and changing and building confidence and breaking free from those chains.
And so how do you see that's really supporting you now in terms of your journey?
The breaking free and having your own identity has broken codependence in our relationship. My husband and I are not together still, we're separated, but I'm not affected by his behavior as much anymore. There are still some things that still hurt and affect the family, but in the sense of who I am, it's not affecting or defining who I am. It's changed that dynamic a lot, and that is an incredible freedom, because he can still live and choose to do his own behavior, but it doesn't rattle me at the core anymore, whereas it would have rattled me. I would have lost sleep. I would have been unable to parent well because I was so disconnected and consumed by my thoughts that I couldn't engage with my kids on a heart level, or even just in a healthy conversation that because I was so consumed and elsewhere in my mind thinking about what he was doing.
Yeah. What about boundaries? Have you found, because in that sort of a situation, obviously setting boundaries becomes really important. Has that shifted for you? Like, do you feel that you can do that?
Massively, massively. I think when I was living before, there were no boundaries. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't define my boundary. I couldn't say, actually, no, that's not okay for me, because I didn't really have a concept for myself of, well, that's something that I'm not going to allow because I'm living to please you more than I'm living to please myself, if that makes sense. Doesn't sound like the right terminology.
Well, when you're living to please somebody and enabling behaviour that is actually destructive, and particularly in your family, for your children, then it's not about living your life in a selfish way. It's you've made decisions to actually protect not just yourself, but your family as well. And if you're not in a good place, how are you going to be any good to your children?
That's exactly right. And I think that was probably one of the biggest defining questions. My kids were a massive motivator for me. When we split, I remember looking at the counselor I had at the time and I said, how do I make this so it doesn't affect my kids in the long run? How do I do this so it doesn't impact them? And that was probably a huge thing to step forward and go, okay, these are some healthy things that you need to do to protect your kids, which essentially I wasn't looking at how do I protect myself, because I didn't have that worth and value, but I knew my kids did. So even though I wasn't doing it yet for myself, I was able to do it for them, which was, that's really an incredible thing that God's given me, that I had the kids that were that little speck of encouragement and hope to push me forward. Yeah. And then since then, he's grown that in so many areas.
Yeah, well, just, watching from the sidelines, your journey, if you weren't in a place that your heart was, getting that healing, and you had that awareness of what you needed, you wouldn't be able to, watch like your little boy cry when he misses his dad, or those things are just such heart pullers, aren't they? And how easy it would be just to go, oh, get your dad, have your dad back, and then repeat all those cycles again. But, you're...
Which I have done. That has been part of my journey, is going through that cycle. We've had a number of reconciliations. So it's definitely been a journey, like a timeline of learning and growth. And I can really reflect and go back over that and say, well, yeah, I have grown in every step of the way. Even though we've gone back, we've learned something from that, and we've grown from that and changed. And even reflecting with the kids, like you were saying, how the kids respond. My eldest has a very different reaction to my youngest, and navigating that can be really challenging at times. Her desire is to withdraw because she is feeling hurt, and she just is fearful. She's in that same spot of being fearful to go back into that relationship again. Whereas my little one, he just wants to be with dad all the time. So it's been challenging to balance that, because the little one will encourage you to draw back into it because he doesn't see the dysfunction, whereas the older one is more wise to it and she's more wary. So you have these two tensions pulling, which is great, because that challenges me to go, okay, now look at it. What is the actual healthy option? Don't do something to please your kids because they don't necessarily know what the healthy option is. What is the healthy option here? What are the right boundaries to put in place for health, not just for everyone to be appeased in the moment, which will lead to long-term dysfunction again.
Back in the cycle again. Yeah. Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope, I guess, for you as a mum. As you say, just putting one foot after the other so that everything stays in some sort of healthy balance and alignment. If you hadn't have done this journey, if you hadn't have chosen, because this is a very courageous journey, it's a courageous thing for any woman to make a decision to bring healing into their heart. And it'll always have like consequences and ramifications in the marriage or the home or whatever, whatever life does. You know, if you hadn't have done that, what do you think? I mean, it's not really a nice thought. It's a bit ugly, but you know, where do you think your life path might have taken you if you hadn't have made these decisions?
Just a complete life of dysfunction. It wouldn't have been if it was at the stage that we were at before, and depression and suicide was the option. You could think that it may have been a fatal outcome.
Wow.
To think of what it would have been if the spiral was continuing down, it wasn't going to be a good outcome either way.
Yeah.
I hate to think that it was something that led towards more violence in the relationship, but that was certainly looking at where it was going, because we didn't have a violent relationship, but there were indicators that that would have happened. And that outcome is terrifying.
Yeah.
So it's incredible to have that perspective and look back on that and go, because of taking that, like you said, courageous and brave choice, has broken that chain and that cycle, and it has created a new trajectory for us, that we're not going to be ending in that another headline, or it wasn't going to be a good outcome.
Well, there's such a beautiful peace in your home. You know, when we go there, it's just quite remarkable that the story behind your life is so tumultuous, and yet, you know, you've made some powerful choices. Do you feel like if you I'm just curious, like how did you come to find people that you could journey with? You know, how did you sort of go, oh, that's a safe person, I think I can trust them? What sort of things were you looking for and noticing?
So that's probably another journey in itself. I think at the start I chose people that weren't safe people, and I had been hurt a number of times, which can stall your journey because you can withdraw and think that maybe healing's not the right option. I was fortunate that the very first person that I reached out to, he was a family member and just has an incredibly gentle spirit, and he knew how to navigate very well with me, which was a blessing. God's hand on that was amazing. So having him at the very start was helpful in keeping on with that. Apart from that, it's definitely been divine intervention on the things that come across my path, because I haven't always looked. Like, to find the betrayal group was found through an auntie of mine who knew my story. She came across somebody else who had been with them and went, oh, this would be amazing for Teresa. I'm going to let her know. And she said, I'll do it with you because I think it's really great. Then it came out that her story, she needed it too. So just the way that it all unfolded was Holy Spirit all the way. We can't say that we pursued that or found that of our own esteem. The counselors I've had have been pretty amazing, but there has definitely been times where I've gone, ooh, that's not the right advice. So leaning into God, I think that was probably another step in the journey, was learning that it's not attaching to a person and pursuing and following that one person, but attaching to the Lord and going, Lord, your word is over all. And I know these guys can give me incredible advice and incredible pointers, but they're human. They make mistakes, and to not put all my expectation and value on them, but to hold the that stance, that was a big turning point for me too. Because I think when I held somebody else as that person, you're going to be my rescuer, was another codependent relationship, and it was just leading to heartache again. So one that is solid, that will hold me, that will maintain, is Jesus. So to draw near him and to hold on to him gave me a solid foundation to bounce off, and then he opens the doors to the people that speak into my life.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, divine intervention, just cannot underrate that. I think, you know, the times that you look back in your life and it's just like a seemingly coincidence or unplanned or random thing, but then, you know, you see the perfect orchestration of like the hand of God over, the fingerprint
Yeah.
of God over those things.
Mm.
So, for where you are now, do you see your heart healing journey just as an ongoing thing? Like, how do you see it moving forward?
Absolutely, absolutely. I still have triggers. I think you and I have talked about it a number of times. It's like the onion layers. You feel like, okay, I'm through that season. I've made headway. I've got breakthrough. I feel really healed in that area. But then something else will come up, and you go, oh well, maybe there's a little bit more to that. I know. I went to a counselor earlier this year, and something had happened, and it just brought up a lot in me. And I went, I don't even know if I've got anywhere. Like, what's going on? I feel like I'm back at square one again. But when I slowed down and I looked at it, I went, oh, okay, I have got a long way, but we're just on another hurdle, just another little area where I can go, all right, Lord, I'm going to submit this into your hands. Show me how to break through this
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I often hear that, I thought I got over this, I thought that was healed, and I think by the grace of God, he's such a gentleman. The Holy Spirit turns up and brings the revelation and the truth to us that we're ready and able and willing to receive at that point. And if he dumped the whole lot all at once, we'd be just undone and overwhelmed. And I think that's often people feel afraid that if I let myself start crying, I might never stop. I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. And I have let myself start crying. This beautiful auntie that I do betrayal group with, or I did betrayal group with, she'd never cried in 25 years, something like that. She hadn't cried. And she was praying throughout the thing, Lord, please help me to cry. And then once the floodgates opened, she's like, every person I speak to, I'm just like, woo. But I feel myself getting teary now. Once you start connecting with your heart, your emotions do.
Come to the surface. Well, it's connecting with that emotional part of us that it is very easy to shut out, block out, and deny. I use that word. You used that word earlier. Denial and the fear that what will happen if we unpack that. But I know that the women I work with, I've seen how gentle the Spirit is as they work through the things that might be coming up, and it's just a sweet, precious thing to watch the gentleness of the Spirit of God land on a person and just gently help them to see and to get the awareness that they need. And so that's just so beautiful how you have had such a traumatic journey, but now you've come to that place where it sounds like you feel equipped to face whatever might happen today or tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you get that, you start to sense it and you know that there's something not right there. When you get that, it's not a fearful response anymore, like, oh, this is a yucky feeling. It's like, oh, okay, I sense that there's something that's not right. Help me to find it. Help me to look at that, identify it for me, and show me how to work through this, Lord. Show me what I need to lay down. Show me what I need to repent from if there's something that I'm doing that's not okay. Or show me if there's something that I believe that's not truth. Bring truth to my heart and bring light back to those dark areas where the truth isn't there.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That's the truth that sets us free. And it's the truth that we can, be running so fast or far from just because we're afraid of what we might find there. Well, look, Teresa, thank you so much for sharing a piece of your journey, your heart healing journey. Really appreciate what you shared, and thank you too for being Mama to Bella and 7 little puppies.
Thank you for letting us. She's just a blessing. She's brought so much love to our house.
That's
incredible experience.
That's what a dog does, hey? They love on you. Well, I'll let you go back to your day, and really appreciate you sharing. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Miriam. See ya.
See ya. Yeah, that's Teresa McKay, and she has been on quite a journey, and it's been a real honour. It's been an honour to be part of that and see that, wow, she's done such a deep dive into heart healing herself, and being so willing to navigate that journey. I think it's really exciting when you hear that people have been able to connect with others that have been facilitating that heart healing journey and being able to open up the heart, because opening up the heart is a scary thing. It takes courage. It takes being brave. It takes choosing not to do it alone. It takes choosing not to be isolated. It's a huge decision and a huge choice. So heart healing is the thing that I love. I'm really passionate about. It's a journey where, as you step towards saying yes to listening to that heart voice, that still small voice within, that we start to hear and understand things about ourselves that start to make a bit of sense. I know that there were quite a few signs for me that I needed heart healing, many signs. And I was a mother of 5, married, and our marriage was on rocky grounds. We were struggling in our finances. I had 5 kids. I was homeschooling. It was a pretty full-on time. And so in my 40s, I kind of came to a bit of an end of the road, unraveled massively. I wasn't coping. I was depressed. I was on antidepressants. And while I hated that, and I hated the side effects, but I needed to find a balance at the time, especially mentally and emotionally. And I was on a emotional roller coaster ride. It was hectic and chaotic, and I'd be up and then I'd be down, and could happen multiple times in a day. And that instability was starting to impact my children, and I could see that. I was angry. I was getting triggered big time. I was tired. I was just really, really tired. And, you can kind of justify these things and think, oh, I've got 5 kids, I'm homeschooling, of course I'll be tired. And you talk to people and they kind of justify it with you. No, not often did not ever once did someone say to me, well, what's going on inside? What's happening inside of you? What's happening in your heart? It was always like, go to the doctor, get antidepressants, get checked medically. And so I did have a few physical issues that were manifesting in this time. And I did go to the doctor and get it checked out. And I came home so disappointed because he kept telling me, there's nothing physically wrong with you. You actually aren't. You're not sick. And yet I didn't feel that way. I felt pretty darn awful. I'd been getting sick, like repeatedly picking up colds or viruses. There was a point where I think for about a month, I just couldn't get myself out of bed. I could not get out of bed in the morning. And for a whole month, I just struggled to even function. And, went to the doctor. No, there's nothing wrong with you. He didn't think I was depressed. And so it was really weird, like all these symptoms that were flying around for me that were signs, big signs that I had some issues I needed to face. And it was when I met a friend who was also a mother of 6 children, homeschooling, a dysfunctional marriage, perhaps even more so than ours. And I saw her after a period of time of not connecting, and her face was radiant. In fact, it reminded me of Chanel. Last week I interviewed Chanel O'Hare, and Chanel's come out of this new age, like fully new age experience. And I remember, 5, 6 years ago when I knew her well, maybe 3, 4 years ago now, she just didn't have that incredible radiance in her face that last week I was just like smitten by the absolute change in her whole demeanor. And so, when we start to address those heart issues, out of the heart flow, the issues of life, then as we start to address those heart issues, it is really, really incredible how it shifts our whole perspective. Like Teresa was saying, it shifted her perspective on how to be a better mother, how to be the mother that her children needed, and even now, how to navigate that balance between what each child needs, which is always going to be different, and she has to navigate that point of balance in her home so that she doesn't embrace those cycles and those dysfunctional behaviours back in the home, but still, the children are getting the support and encouragement that they need. So cycles and dysfunction, these are the things that cause a huge barrier to us getting our heart healing. So today I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of living in alignment, because when things happen in our life, it brings us out of alignment. It brings us to a place where we are just battered. We're on the roller coaster. We can't seem to get off. And life just seems to be battering us from one thing to the next. So living in alignment comes from the concept that I'd like to share with you today. So I will start here with this piece. This has been a concept for me that has been incredibly freeing as I've come to understand who I am. Oops, I've gone and clicked on the wrong thing. Let me just stop that and get back to the right one. It should be that one, but it's not coming up as that one. I am just quickly going to find the right one. Sorry. Here we go. My messy computer there. Don't worry about me. So the very first piece that I want to talk about is our body. We're three-part beings: body, soul, and spirit. This first part, the body, our flesh, our physical bit, the temple that we live in, it's a really critical part, but it needs to be framed up with these other two. We have our soul. Our soul is our mind, our will, our emotions. And then, of course, we have the spirit part of us, body, soul, and spirit. We need to be living with these three aligned. What's going on here? The body needs, well, we know what it needs. It needs exercise. It needs to be eating healthy. It needs to be getting the rest to function well. And when it doesn't, then it starts to break down, which Teresa alluded to it. And for me, that's very much been my experience as well. I'm going to share with you the next. I haven't got this very organized today, so my apologies for that. But I will just jump in and get the second piece that no, that's not it. There we go. Yeah, this is the second piece. It's our soul. Our soul is the part that just so much destruction can happen. It's the part of us that constitutes our mind, our thinking. It's our emotions, our will, our desires. It's our emotions, our feelings. And then there's this conscience part in our soul, when we hear something that we're like, should I do that or not? And we ignore it. Our soul is a very critical piece. It's the part where we get messed up, the way we think, the lies we believe, the feelings we have. So our soul is just, unfortunately, not always a really easy piece to follow. Let's go back to here. So Our thoughts, for instance, we have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, according to research. That's a lot of thinking, right? It's a lot of opportunities to get negative. In fact, research says that 80% of our thoughts are negative. So right there, we've got a battle on our hands. And this I found fascinating. 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So when we get caught up in cycles, when we get caught up in thinking the same old, same old, same old, we've got a battle on our hands. And the soul part of us, our mind, is a big, big part of that battle. Our will will be driving us to get what we want, even though we may know that it's bad for us, but there'll just be drivers there that are pushing us. It's a powerful force for good and for bad. So having our will out of alignment in our soul is destructive. It's not going to go well. Our emotions, well, we have the good and the bad, but interestingly, research that Brené Brown has brought out, she has found that we can't actually choose to have just positive emotions and ignore the negative. In fact, the very most lowest common denominator is where we'll end up. We can't choose to love and not hate. We can't choose to be in joy and be sad. It's like they negate each other. These emotions are pesky and we need to understand them. They start with a thought. Oh, I'm feeling angry. Why are you feeling angry? Because I thought that person said this. And then it generates a response, which isn't always a healthy response. These emotions, though, they can be very powerful for us because they're signals, they're signs. They're signs for what's going on inside of us, in our heart, that are calling out and crying out for us to pay attention to. Our conscience, it knows right from wrong. It's a moral compass. It's a piece of us that starts with a thought, then attaches an emotion to us, and then we have this belief pattern, which becomes our conscience. So if it's not a healthy belief pattern, if it's a lie, that part of our soul is going to be pulling us out of alignment. So we have the mind, we have the will, we have emotions, and we have a conscience that are cycling around continually, pulling on our soul. It's can you see how messy of a place our soul can be? And so it's very, very easy for our soul to come out of alignment with all of us. And that mind, will, and emotions, our conscience, it just ends up getting into the battle with the rest of us. It's a battle in our soul. And interestingly, the word actually says that we've got to find out the salvation of our soul. That's the part of us that truly has to come into alignment. Then there's the last part of us. This part is a very anchoring piece, our spirit. Our spirit man, I see it as an anchor. It just tethers us to a really powerful place. It's where our life emanates from. It's where our breath emanates from. It's where the light of, when you meet someone, you go, oh, they just have a lovely spirit. They just have a lovely, they radiate light and life and love. That's what's coming from their spirit man. It's the real essence of who we are, the essence of who God has made us to be. And when we align with that, it feeds right through all of our life. This is how I see it, like a plumb line. I saw it as a plumb line with a weighty spirit. The spirit is the weighty bit down the bottom that really keeps us in line. If we listen to it, it's where the still small voice comes from, where the heart is speaking from, where the heart voice emanates from. If we don't listen to it, the piece that comes out of alignment is the soul. our mind, our will, our emotions. It pulls us out of alignment. It pulls us away from listening to the still small voice. It pulls us away from allowing the life and the light to radiate from us. When our soul pulls out of alignment, it's being bossy. It's trying to dominate us. It's trying to direct everything in our life, the way we think, the way we feel. And then it gets more and more crazy and bossy and believable, even though it's telling us lies that aren't serving us well. And what that does is it impacts our body. When we come out of alignment, we get sick, we get tired, we get all of that stuff, sick, I've already said that, angry, all of these things that impact our body and our well-being. So it's in the soul piece. It's in our mind. It's in our will. It's in our emotions. It's in that middle piece of us, our soul here. That's the part that needs to be brought into alignment. And that's where heart healing happens. It comes from the spirit man, which is why for me I use spirit-led intuitive heart healing to work the part of us, the soul part of us, and bring it into a healthy space. And I'm not sure if that was even showing to you. I will see. If it wasn't, my apologies. I've got some pictures. I'll show them to you later. Oh, the screen share must have stopped. So there's 3 parts of us: body, soul, and spirit. And when those parts come out of alignment, let's see if I can get that piece up here. Yeah, I should have gone back to share with you. So here we got, that was the plumb line I was telling you about. Your spirit man anchors you. It's the part that's speaking to you. It's where the heart voice comes from. It's the essence of our life and the true, authentic, genuine person that we are. When we're working from that spirit man, it emanates through our soul, our thoughts, our will, our mind, our emotions. When we let the soul take us out of alignment because of the way we think, our desires, our feelings, and our conscience, then we get out of alignment. We get very wobbly, and it impacts all of our being, all of our life. So this living in alignment looks like this: bringing our soul into line, that bossy piece of us, bringing our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions into alignment. So heart healing is the journey of connecting with what we believe. What's in our mind? What are we believing? With connecting with our desires. Why is that desire there? Why do I want to self-harm? Why do I want to do that thing? What is triggering it? These are manifestations of something in our soul that is broken, and we need to fix it. And it's not as hard as we think. It just takes courage and bravery, as Teresa shared. It takes a lot of courage and bravery. Our emotions, I was a roller coaster ride. My emotions were a mess. But then as I started to connect with my spirit man and allow my heart to really reveal where these emotions, why they were being triggered, what was going on at a deeper level, and it's so uniquely personal and unique to every single person, that as you journey through that heart healing space, that the revelation will come, the insight will come. You will get that intuition in your own spirit man that will reveal to you what's out of alignment and what you need to bring into alignment for yourself. This living in alignment is a lifelong journey. It's not something that, you just do it and bam, everything lines up and no more hassles, no more problems ever again. As Teresa said, it's a day-by-day journey, and it's a choice every day of saying to my soul, hang on, as Teresa mentioned, that is triggering me. oh, so that's triggering me because I have this lie, or I've gone back to believing a lie, or I'm acting out of some emotional trauma or pain. When we sit and we rest and we be still and we listen to the still small voice, we're going to get the insight, we're going to get the revelation, we're going to get the understanding of what is going on in our soul that needs to be brought healing to. And that's where our wounds sit. The traumas, the wounds, the hurts, they sit on our soul. And when we bring healing to our soul, then we start to clean up the filters, clean up the triggers, clean up the emotional mess. We start to make an incredible difference into the way we live, the way we relate. I was talking to a lady recently, and she has had some marriage struggles in her own journey. And I said to her, you know, this may not be what you want to hear, but probably the way to work on your marriage is to work on you. Start working on the part in you that needs healing, the wounds in your heart that need healing. We talked a little bit about it. We spent some time just, you know, tossing up some ideas. And it really wasn't deep or even, you know, super spiritual. It was over a cup of coffee in a coffee shop. And the other day I saw her and she said, well, you wouldn't believe it, but my marriage is so much better. And I said to her, so what's changed? And she said, me. She had been the one to change. She had been the one to work on her. And in working on her, it had made an incredible impact in the way she was relating. You heard Teresa sharing her story about the boundaries that she had to set because her marriage was so dysfunctional, with what was going on with even illegal activities in the home, which could have really truly compromised the well-being of everybody. She had to make a decision what was going to be safe, what was going to be healthy for her children. So it started for her pursuing what was good for her children, only to discover that that was actually good for her as well. So it's like as we start to listen to that still small voice, we start to listen to what's in our heart, we start to allow ourselves to connect with truth, that we see the freedom that our soul and our heart is so hungry for. Our soul, it's a really cheeky piece of us. It's a very messy piece of us. It's a very undisciplined piece of us if we let it be. So every day it takes a choice to say to my soul, when I get a little bit off on something, hang on. What is going on here? Why am I triggered? Where did that thought come from? Why did I feel that? And investigating my soulish responses, and then very often discovering there's a wound on my soul. There's a wound on my soul that's come from a heart issue, where my spirit man is saying, can you please fix this up? Can you please sort this out so that I don't have this soul pulling me off into all these crazy places and responses and cycles and patterns and repeated destructive behaviors? Living in alignment is one of the most powerful things that you can choose to do. The bad news is it's an everyday part of life. It's an everyday piece of our lifestyle. The good news is that once you understand it and once you align with it and you take it on board and you work to progressively get stronger and stronger in your soul, in your spirit man, then that life, that love, that light will start to radiate through you. And people will be asking you, they'll be saying, excuse me, what are you doing differently? Which is what I asked my friend. And then the other day, the lady that I was talking about with some some issues in her own marriage. She's got people asking her, what are you still doing this, or are you doing that? What are you doing? People get curious because they see it manifests on our face, it manifests in our body, it manifests in our attitude, it manifests from that spirit man deep, deep down. And people are drawn to it because that's what they're hungry for as well. So if more and more of us get on this heart healing journey and embrace it and start to say, I am going to do this, whatever it takes, because it will be a battle. There's always a war over the door of your threshold where you're stepping into something new, where you're stepping into things that you haven't embraced before. Whatever door that you might have to step through, there'll be a war over that door, and it will tell you it's too hard. Like Teresa said, you might pick some wrong people to journey with and you'll get hurt, and then you'll think this whole healing thing's rubbish. And we make these decisions, sadly, because while that's a true reflection of that situation, it's not a true reflection of every place out there that could be a facilitator or a conduit for heart healing. So I want to encourage you, and I want to suggest that I'm going to put into the comments a link to a heart healing checklist. Do I have heart wounds? And it's just a checklist that I threw together. Well, I did throw it together. It took me a long time actually to put it together. It's a checklist that reflects back to you maybe some things that are happening in your life that you're ignoring. You're like, oh yeah, no, I'm just this or I'm just that. And it's easy to embrace it as being you and being part of who you are. But I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to think higher of yourself. As Teresa said, she had so little self-worth, but now she values herself enough to put boundaries in place that aren't easy to manage and aren't easy to maintain and can be a battle on days for all of us. But when we choose to put those things in place, when we choose to align ourselves with things that are going to bring our soul into alignment, bring our soul into line so that our body can live out the fullness and the strength and the empowerment and the purpose that we so desire. And our spirit man drives us because it's not going through this soul over here trying to pull it back into alignment. It's living in a really powerful way because we're grounded. That plumb line, that weighty spirit man of ours is being listened to. We are hearing the heart voice. We are hearing the still small voice. We are listening to it and paying attention to it. And when you do the checklist, there might be some things that come up, and if you need to medically check that out, you go medically check it out. Go take the action that you need to take. Don't do nothing. Doing nothing is doing something. Unfortunately, the something is nothing. You're not going to have a shift. You're not going to see healing in your life. You're not going to see yourself empowered. You're not going to see wounds healed up. You're not going to see you be able to step into and unlock that God-given destiny in your life. Where we have so many blockages through these heart wounds, they don't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. So I just would encourage, if you would like to do the heart wounds checklist, and it takes you through physical manifestations, emotional, mental, spiritual manifestations, then have a really good look at it. Have a think about it. Is this something I need to get checked medically? Is this something that's just been ongoing and there must be something more there that I could actually dive into a bit of a heart healing journey and see brought to the surface, no more hiding or denying it, and seeing healing come into my life. I will leave those thoughts with you today. I have a mentoring program, and I have a mentoring one-on-one heart encounter. I had a mental blank then. What are they called? Heart encounters, where I journey with women. I walk with them. We walk through a heart encounter, and a lot can be revealed in just a short hour-and-a-half session. You receive the video recording and you receive the notes and action steps that you can take to start making some different choices, different processes, using some strategies and some tools that help to facilitate bringing healing to those wounds rather than letting them be repeated, and sadly, repeated down the generational line as well. The way that we behave, the reactions we have, the responses we make, we have little eyes watching from the very beginning, and they end up doing exactly what we do. Unless we make some changes that model something different to them. So thank you very much to Teresa who joined me today, and thanks for listening, and take care and God bless. Look out for the links in the comments, which I will do this week. Take care.